Well, it has been a bruising week in the polls for the government. A major poll revealing that Labour supporters slumped to 29% and the Prime Minister's popularity has taken a hit too. It came after Labour released a slew of policy, but so far at least it doesn't appear to be resonating with voters. Deputy Prime Minister Carmel Sepuloni is here to talk policy and the polls. Welcome to the programme.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. I heard this week that the Prime Minister, in the wake of that poll, called the government the underdogs.
Well, we are the underdog. Clearly at the moment we're behind in the polls, but they can shift. And I've been around long enough to know that polls go up and down, but what really matters is what happens on October the 14th.
Yeah, but you guys, that's just spin, isn't it? The underdogs. You can't be the underdogs. You have a majority government. You are the big dog in Parliament.
If we're behind, we're the underdog.
But you have the power, you have the people. That's just spin.
It's not spin. If we're behind, we are the underdog. And so we're up for a fight, though, and certainly know that it's going to take a fight to take out this election. Yeah,
well, it does feel like this week, in the wake of that poll, that Labour has really lost the room. Those numbers came after the release of 3 policies in 1 week, but they aren't resonating with voters.
Look, I think it's the package that we go into the election with that's going to be really important to the voters.
You would have expected a bump, though.
I actually think that most New Zealanders are not even paying attention to the fact that we have an election coming up. I've been asked a number of times this week by people, actually, when is the election? And so people are just starting to pay attention now. They're going to be looking at the track record, they're going to be looking at what political parties are offering, and also they're going to be looking at what's at stake. And there's a lot at stake at this election. And so I think, we've got 7 weeks from today. And it's going to be a very hard-run campaign.
With those 3 policies, though, those are 3 high-profile policies.
They are,
and people are tuned out. That's got to be worrying for you. You would have expected a bump after those GST
I think people don't feel that they're real at this point in time because they are just policies that have been announced. They are things that we will do when, if we get re-elected. And so certainly people don't feel the impact of them right now, but people will be weighing up what political parties are offering in the next 7 weeks. And as I said, what is at stake? What will be cut if, say, National did get their tax cuts in? And what are they willing to sacrifice, for something like that?
Where do you think those voters are going who are leaving Labour, or have left Labour, at least for the moment?
Oh, I think
where do you think they're going and why?
I don't think we can say people have left Labour. They're still just polls.
They certainly have from the start of the year, Deputy Prime Minister.
I also think that, what is fair to say is that we, had a massive win at the last election. That was off the back of COVID and the trust that we had built up as a political party and Jacinda's leadership. But that was an anomaly. That is not a normal election in an MMP environment. This is a normal election, what we're going into now. It is always tight. And so, this is what we're used to, I guess, in an MMP environment.
Well, just going back to that last election, there are plenty of people who would say you have burned through an immense amount of political capital, and it looks now like you're burning through the capital of Chris Hipkins too.
No, I don't think that's fair. I think, what is fair to say is that New Zealand's been through a lot over the last 6 years. And certainly what is fair to say is that it's tough for people at the moment, and I think, when we sit back and reflect, it's not necessarily the government's fault that we've got cost of living issues, that we've had weather events, that people's everyday experiences have been very difficult. That's not necessarily the government's fault, but the way people are feeling is real, and so they're looking around to think, what can fix this for us? And so I think people will be taking seriously what each political party has to offer over the next 7 weeks.
The danger is that they blame you for that, Deputy Prime Minister, but it's looked a little bit to me anyway this week like the party is panicking. We have seen one example, I want to give you an example, is the do-over on the vaping policy. Just 6 weeks ago, we had the Health Minister and the Prime Minister stand up in front of the country and say, we are cracking down on vaping and this is how. 6 weeks later, we have the same 2 people saying, oh, we're going to do another crackdown and this is now our election campaign policy. I mean, what is that about?
I don't think that's panicking at all. That's responding to a concern that people have out there.
But the response came 6 weeks ago.
Oh, I think, it's not panicking at all. We're still in government. We still have decisions to make. And so, these are responding to the issues that are in front of us.
But that is 6 weeks apart, two policies on vaping. Looks panicked.
I don't think it looks panicked at all.
It looks panicked to me.
I think it's just, the nature of the job. There is an issue in front of us and let's respond.
So, but why? I'm really interested in this because I've never seen it before. So why are you doing over this crackdown on vaping? Why just 6 weeks apart do you have two policies? Cracking down on vaping.
I think it's, it is actually a concern for New Zealanders. And so, being responsive and coming in and saying we're going to do this and then we're going to do that, that is not panicking. That is just saying, OK, we're taking action.
All right. People can make up their own minds about that. I want to talk to you about, what is the top issue going into this election is the cost of living crisis. Yeah. What we've got from Labour is a 10-point plan to attack the cost of living. That includes free doctors' prescriptions, cheaper childcare, free or half-price public transport for children and young people. These are the things that have been implemented already. But the other 7 parts of the plan don't come in until next year. Some don't come in until 2026. People have been hurting for 2 years. Why has it taken your government so long?
We have already responded. 1st of April, we saw superannuation go up, we saw benefits go up, we saw the minimum wage go up, student allowances go up, increases to working for families. We've already started to roll out more access to things like childcare subsidy. In August, people that are on benefit, on sole parent benefit, will be experiencing first-time child support pass-on. So there has been action, and then we just continue to look forward in terms of what we will be doing.
That action is smart, and it helps out some of the most vulnerable New Zealanders. But there is not a lot out there for middle New Zealand, unless you're you want to disagree?
I want to disagree because, taking the co-payment of prescriptions is for everyone.
Yes, but that's $5 a week. $5 a prescription.
Free transport, public transport for children, and then half price for under 25s. That's for everyone.
But is that going to make a huge difference to people who are experiencing 24% price hikes in their cost of their fruit and vegetables?
Well, certainly if they have children, it does. And then, just this week...
It wouldn't offset it.
Well, it certainly cuts back when you add everything up. It certainly does help to address some of the pressures on the household budget. And, even just this week, we reached the milestone of 100 million free lunches in schools. That makes a significant difference to the budgets of households. And so, these are the things, that one in particular, that are at stake if we are not re-elected. And so the pressure that would go on the pockets of families, would be huge.
But National has not said, just to be clear, that they're going to cut that program.
I think ACT might have.
Well, ACT wants to cut a lot of things.
They could potentially have a lot of power. And so, this is where there is a real risk for New Zealand. And so, I don't know whether or not New Zealanders know how much is at stake with a potential national ACT government.
Well, I want to come back to a Labour government and your 10-point plan, because the other 7 parts of your plan don't come in until next year. So unless you're a family with preschool children, you're only saving $5 on your prescriptions or getting your free public transport.
But
it's very incremental, and middle New Zealand largely misses out.
But as I said, there already have been changes, and so...
But not for middle New Zealand. Can you identify what middle New Zealand is getting?
The public transport, the co-payments, all of those
things. Aside from those things, what's middle New Zealand doing?
Well, and there are some middle New Zealand children that go to schools where there are free lunches in schools.
Can you point to anything else?
Well, no, but those are really important policies. Even things like, supporting schools so that they don't have a donation system in place so parents don't have to pay that to the schools. All of those things are things that we've done to alleviate the pressure on the pockets of families.
But the cost of living crisis has been going on now for 2 years. Families are struggling and they're looking to the government, and that is a long time in the economic fortunes of those families.
But I think it's unfair to say that we haven't already done anything. You know, I've mentioned some of the things that we have done.
But I'm saying Middle New Zealand has missed out largely.
And what we have announced is moving forward, and so there has to be ongoing action taken, and as a government we've certainly demonstrated our commitment to doing that, and then looking forward, you know, we've made several announcements that will make a difference as well.
The 10-point plan does look a little bit thin because two of the points are creating jobs and growing wages and keeping inflation under control. I mean, that is the core business of any government, isn't it? That's just business as usual. It's
important to put on record that that's our priority and that's our focus. And so, you know, what we recognise is that the challenging times that we are in, you know, we look forward and Treasury says inflation will come down. We will return to some type of normality, you know, next year. And so, you know, we have to continue to work towards that.
There are two more policies to come in this 10-point plan by my count. Is one of them changes to the in-work tax credit in Working for Families?
We've announced what we will be doing with Working for Families.
Okay.
As a political party. As a government, I've said, you know, the review is still underway and that report back will go to Cabinet before the end of the year. So two separate things.
Yes.
What we've announced is what we will definitely do, which is increase the in-work tax credit and then lift the threshold. That doesn't mean that there isn't necessarily something else that might be done off the back of the review going to Cabinet.
But you've had that review. That review's been out took 2 years. You've had that review since earlier this year. Is it time to stop reviewing and to start doing?
Well, I think that anyone who has experienced Working for Families or accessed it would know that it is actually a very complicated system. And so we want to make sure that the advice that the Cabinet receives is fulsome before moving forward.
Well, that was the whole problem, isn't it? That it was too complicated, the Working for Families. That's what the review is looking at.
Yeah.
Anti-poverty groups have been pretty open and they've contributed to that review, saying that they want the in-works tax credit, which is $72.50 for families with 3 children, paid to or extended to families who are not in paid work or on a benefit.
Yeah.
Have you ruled that out?
Certainly in the policy that we've announced as a political party, that is not something that we have included in our announcement. It will shift the in-work tax credit to 97 under us.
But for those families who are not in paid work or on a benefit, because those are the most vulnerable children who are living in poverty, 200,000 of them.
And 50% of the children living in poverty are in working households. You know, there are in-work expenses that people have to pay to be able to work, and we recognise how difficult that is. So often people say, you know, you hear people mention, particularly those on the lowest wages, that it doesn't feel like they're getting ahead or working isn't paying off, and that's because they've got transport costs, they've got childcare costs.
So that's why they get it. But what about those families that don't, that are on a benefit or who are not in paid work?
I'm not going to pretend that there doesn't need to be more done to address income adequacy for those on welfare. There is certainly more that needs to be done. But what we have seen, of course, is over $3 billion put into lifting benefits.
I want to come back to that.
1st of April, they went up.
I want to come back to that because you're saying there that you're not saying that more doesn't need to be done. So when are you going to do it?
Well, you know, this is the ongoing work. When we started the overhaul of the welfare system, we didn't say that that would be done in 3 years' time. That is, you know, part and parcel of what we continue to do. So I'm not going to make any announcements in terms of, you know, lifting benefits or anything like that today, but we need to continue to address income adequacy in the welfare system. And if re-elected, we will continue to do that work.
Yeah, but you also might be out of time.
Oh, you know, we're still in this to win it.
We'll see.
And we'll be working hard over the next 7 weeks to do that.
OK, I want to talk to you about Gloriavale now, because it is an extraordinary and quite concerning situation, what is happening down there. In the wake of those employment court rulings, which found that those boys and girls were not volunteers, they were employees, is Gloriavale still exploiting children for child labour down there?
Look, I have to acknowledge that this is not a particular area that I have the lead on as Minister.
But you do have responsibility as the Chair of the Social Wellbeing Cabinet Committee, that is coordinating the all-of-government response.
The Minister that's in charge is actually Priyanka Radhakrishnan.
But you chair the Social Wellbeing Cabinet Committee.
I do chair the Social Wellbeing Cabinet Committee, but I'm not the lead on that. There's a lot of papers and issues that come through that Cabinet Committee.
I bet.
And so, you know, of course we're watching really closely what happens down there, and there is ongoing work.
Okay, and so how's it going?
I haven't got an update on how that is going, to be honest, so I'm not going to speak to that.
But you are getting updated by Craig Churchill, who is the regional lead down there.
I'm not directly, because I'm not the minister responsible.
So does it concern you, though? MSD has been involved with what's going on down there as well, so you do have some
They have been involved
responsibility.
as one of many of the agencies. I haven't received an up-to-date report on where that work is at, and so I think it would be a little bit difficult for me to speak to that right now.
Well, why not? Because this is a highly concerning situation that has been going on for decades. It looks like a systemic failure, and you know, there's a range of government agencies who are involved there, including your own.
Yeah.
So why don't you know more about what's happening there?
If I'm completely frank, I didn't realise we'd be talking about this today, so otherwise I would have got an update beforehand so I could speak to it. And anything that I do know could be outdated, and so I wouldn't want to speak to that today.
Do you have comfort, I suppose, that the 350 children who are down there are safe and being kept safe by the multiple agencies, including your own, that are working down there?
They've got lots of eyes over them, and they have for quite some time now. And so the right government agencies are in there. And they know that they are being monitored very closely, and so I haven't had any suggestions that they are unsafe.
OK, well, Deputy Prime Minister, thank you so much for joining us here on The Nation, and good luck out there on the campaign trail.
Thank you.